It's the 21st century way to discover your backstory. As the popularity of DNA testing continues to grow, companies claim they can help answer your questions about your ancestry. But exactly how do they go through the process? Well, Albert, Mike, and I take a lighthearted look at what our tests uncovered. We all start out the same, drifting in a pool of possibility. Nothing in our lives is predetermined, except our genetics. Who are you? What are you? Where do you come from?
I would get asked a lot, well, where did your family come from? What part of Mexico did your family come from?
Simple questions with complicated answers.
I know that I come from a long line of horse thieves and bank robbers, and that's a joke, as far as I know.
While Mike comes from horse thieves and bank robbers, I come from preachers and teachers. African American, Indian, white, just like I said, I'm a big ball of cold pepper cookie dough. Can a pre-packaged test like this one from MyHeritage really shed more light on our ethnic makeup? What if Mike and I are related? Oh, jeez.
People say we look alike all the time.
For best results, when taking the test, you can't eat, drink, or chew gum before swabbing the inside of each cheek for 1 minute. Pop the swabs into the tubes, send them off to the company, and wait 6 weeks. It's a quest for answers hundreds of thousands have done over the past few years, including University of Texas Associate Professor of Innovative Biology, Steve Phelps.
The analysis of DNA has just become so inexpensive, and so the tools for that have just continued to grow.
An expert in the genetics field, he decided to take a test from 23andMe. He says sometimes these tests provide answers you'd never expect. His certainly did.
I found 2 second cousins through 23andMe who were both, so they're both somewhat distant relatives, but both of them had been given up for adoption. One had been abandoned as a child. It wasn't what I was expecting, and I knew that the test had the power to do that, but it didn't occur to me that that might be something that's a relatively common experience.
When we get our MyHeritage tests back, Albert's results aren't exactly what he expected.
No huge surprise for me, 60% Central American, but the 2 surprises, 11% Italian and nearly 6% South Asian.
Mike feels the same.
Mostly Eastern European, not a big surprise because I said my mom is Czech and I had a grandfather who was Russian, that's that area. I thought the Rushes were English, that's only about 5%, but look, 39% Scandinavian, which would explain my rugged, muscular, Viking-like appearance.
And mine has a few surprises that I wouldn't have guessed. The Nigerian, Sierra Leonean, Kenyan came as no surprise. The English, very nice touch, but the Italian and the Greek, that was definitely something unexpected. When you send in your DNA, it's compared to samples from a database of people around the world who've lived in a certain area for generations.
When you compare the genomes of any 2 people, they're almost identical.
Dr. Phelps says DNA companies don't look at the whole genome, they only sequence an extremely small part. So the way each company analyzes the genes leaves lots of room for interpretation. That's why in some cases it's hard to pinpoint exactly what region your ancestors came from. So the companies end up trying to make an educated guess.
You're sharing that information about yourself, but you're also sharing it about your family. And that's just something people should consider when they do it.
So while digging deeper into your ancestry may be an adventure that can leave you excited or heartbroken, in the end, DNA is just a small piece of what makes you, you. And I think we had a pretty good time actually doing those tests and going through the results together. And I'm just so glad that my KVUE family was able to do this with me.
It was a lot of fun, you know, and of course, stereotypical Viking. I mean, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So.
And we share some Italian, huh?
I know. That's right.
Look at you, too. You know what's cool about that?
Yeah.
Before we move on to weather, is that we get these email updates from this thing and, you know, of possible relatives. And I got one whose last name was my grandmother's maiden name. So, and I had never given that information of my grandmother's maiden name to them. So there's a good likelihood that really is a relative.
I was going to say, I've definitely gotten a couple as well. And Albert, I know you have too.
5% Martian, that really shocked me. I knew something weird was going on.
They told me they were surprised that I ended up being a human after all.
Yeah, it's true.
So anyway.